This presentation details a real-life case involving a tragic death. Viewer discretion is advised as the content may be disturbing to some audiences. There is a video, uploaded by the Los Angeles Police Department in 2013, that defies explanation. It's 4 minutes of grainy, silent security footage from an elevator in a downtown hotel. 4 minutes that would become the internet's most chilling mystery. And at the center of it is a 21-year-old Canadian student named Elisa Lam. What you are about to hear described is the last time she was ever seen alive. The video begins. The elevator doors slide open. Elisa, dressed in a red hoodie, walks in. She leans forward and presses a series of buttons. Then she retreats to the back corner of the elevator, waiting. But the doors don't close. They just stay open. It's strange, but not yet alarming. She waits. A few seconds pass. Cautiously, she peeks her head out of the elevator, looking quickly to her left, then to her right, as if checking for someone. She sees nothing or no one and quickly darts back inside, pressing herself against the wall, almost as if she's hiding. Still, the doors refuse to close. This is where the footage turns from strange to deeply unsettling. Elisa steps out of the elevator completely. She stands just outside the door, moving in a bizarre, almost choreographed way. She takes a step to the left, then back to the right. She looks down the hallway, then she begins talking. Her hands move animatedly, gesturing, pleading, chopping the air. She twists her fingers together, her arms contorting in ways that seem unnatural. But there's no one there. The hallway is empty. Is she talking to someone just out of frame? Or is she talking to something no one else can see? After nearly a minute of this phantom conversation, she walks away, down the hall to the left, and disappears from view. And then the impossible happens. The elevator doors, which had remained inexplicably open for over 2 minutes while she was inside and right outside, suddenly slide shut. They open again on another floor. They close. They open again. As if, finally, the elevator is working perfectly. This footage is a puzzle with no right answers. It's a digital ghost story that played out in real life. The LAPD released it to the public hoping for a lead, a clue, anything to explain where this missing young woman had gone. Instead, they created a viral sensation that haunted millions. Who was she hiding from? What was she so afraid of? And the most important question of all, after she walked away from that elevator, where did she go? The answer to that question is more horrifying than any theory the internet could invent. 19 days after this video was filmed, her body was found. It was discovered in a location so secure, so inaccessible, it seemed to defy the laws of physics. A place that would turn a missing persons case into a legend of paranormal horror and true crime obsession. To understand how she ended up there, you first have to understand who she was. Elisa Lam wasn't just a face in a grainy video. She was a vibrant, curious, and deeply thoughtful young woman from Vancouver, a student at the University of British Columbia. Like many people her age, she documented her life online. She had a blog, a public diary where she posted about her struggles with depression and bipolar disorder, but also about her dreams, her love of fashion, and her excitement for the future. In January of 2013, she decided to embark on a solo trip across the west coast of the United States, a journey she called her West Coast Tour. She traveled by train and bus, documenting her stops in San Diego and Los Angeles. Her blog posts were filled with a sense of wonder and adventure. She was seeing the world on her own terms. She seemed happy. She was in daily contact with her parents back in Canada, checking in every single day without fail. Her final destination in Los Angeles was a budget hotel on Main Street, the Cecil Hotel. If that name sends a shiver down your spine, it should. The Cecil is not just any hotel. It's a landmark of American darkness, a place with a history written in blood. Since its opening in the 1920s, the Cecil has been a magnet for the tragic and the macabre. It's been the site of numerous suicides, murders, and unexplained deaths. It was a known temporary home for at least 2 of America's most infamous serial killers. Richard Ramirez, the Night Stalker, reportedly stayed there during his horrific killing spree in the mid-80s. Jack Unterweger, an Austrian serial killer who preyed on sex workers, was also a guest. The hotel became so notorious for death and despair that it earned the nickname, the Suicide. This was the building Elisa Lam chose for her stay in the City of Angels. She checked in on January 26, 2013. Initially, She was assigned a shared hostel-style room, but her roommates complained of odd behavior, and she was moved to a private room on the 5th floor just 2 days later. For the next few days, her trip seemed to continue as planned. She was seen buying books at a nearby store called the Last Bookstore, bringing gifts back to her room for her family. She posted on her blog about her experiences. Everything appeared normal. Her parents expected their daily call on January 31st, but that call never came. When they didn't hear from her, they knew immediately that something was terribly wrong. They contacted the LAPD, who launched a missing person investigation. Police searched the hotel. They brought in scent-sniffing dogs. They scoured her room, but all of her belongings, her wallet, her phone, her laptop were still there. The only thing missing was Elisa herself. The dogs tracked her scent to a hotel window that led to a fire escape, but then the trail went cold. It was as if she had vanished into thin air. Days turned into weeks. The case was going nowhere. Desperate for a break, the LAPD made the fateful decision to release the last known footage of her. That bizarre 4-minute clip from the elevator, filmed on the day she disappeared. They hoped a member of the public might recognize something, see something the police had missed. The video did not generate the leads they wanted. Instead, it ignited a firestorm of public speculation. Amateur sleuths from around the world dissected every frame. Was she under the influence of drugs? But her toxicology report would later show no signs of illegal substances. Was she having a psychotic episode related to her bipolar disorder? It was possible, but her family said she was diligent with her medication. Or was the most terrifying theory the correct one? Was she playing a deadly game of hide-and-seek with someone who was waiting for her just down the hall? Someone the camera couldn't see? Someone who followed her after she walked out of frame? The theories grew wilder and wilder, but no one could get past one simple, impossible fact. A 21-year-old girl walked into a hotel and never walked out. While the internet was busy trying to solve the puzzle of the elevator video, a strange new problem was developing inside the Cecil Hotel itself. Guests began to complain. They complained about low water pressure in the showers. They complained that the water coming from the taps was discolored, a dark, murky color. And most disturbingly, they complained that it had a strange, sweet, disgusting taste. For over 2 weeks, guests and residents of the Cecil Hotel were bathing, brushing their teeth, and drinking water that was inexplicably foul. The hotel's maintenance staff was sent to investigate the source of the problem. Their search led them to the roof, and to the hotel's 4 large industrial water tanks. That is where they would finally find the answer to where Elisa Lam had gone. On the morning of February 19, 2013, maintenance worker Santiago Lopez took the elevator to the 15th floor, and then climbed a final set of stairs to the roof of the Cecil Hotel. He was responding to a series of bizarre complaints from guests. The water pressure was unusually low. For some, the water coming out of the taps was discolored, a murky brownish black, and for others it had a strange, sweetish, and deeply unpleasant taste. Lopez stepped out onto the flat, sun-baked roof, a place most guests never saw. Before him stood the hotel's 4 main water cisterns. They were massive cylindrical metal tanks, each standing about 10 feet tall and 4.5 feet in diameter, holding roughly 1,000 gallons of water each. They were old, weathered, and provided all the water for the hotel rooms, the kitchen, and the coffee shop below. His job was simple: figure out what was wrong. He grabbed a ladder and leaned it against the side of the main tank. He climbed up, his footsteps echoing on the metal rungs. At the top, he noticed something immediately strange. The main hatch, a heavy circular metal lid, was open. It was supposed to be closed, and it was heavy enough that the wind couldn't have done it. He peered down into the dark water inside. First he saw nothing. Then, as his eyes adjusted, he saw something pale, floating just a few inches below the surface. He thought it might be a reflection, a trick of the light, but it wasn't. He looked closer, his heart beginning to pound in his chest. About a foot down, submerged in the murky water that the hotel's guests had been drinking and bathing in for days, was the body of a woman. She was face up, her limbs floating unnaturally. It was Elisa Lam. The call to 911 was frantic. Within minutes, the rooftop was swarming with LAPD officers and paramedics. The scene was as grim as it was baffling. To recover the body, the fire department had to make a difficult choice. They couldn't simply pull her out through the small opening at the top without potentially compromising evidence. So they had to drain the entire 1,000-gallon tank. They cut a square hole in the side of the massive metal cylinder, and as the water gushed out onto the roof, the full horror of the situation was revealed. Elisa was found completely naked. Her clothes, the same ones she was seen wearing in the elevator footage, were in the tank with her, floating in the water. Her watch and her room key were also found at the bottom. But the questions began piling up faster than the officers could process them. First, how did she even get up here? The rooftop was supposed to be a restricted area. The main door was locked and alarmed, and a second access point through a fire escape was difficult to find and even more difficult to use. Hotel staff later claimed that only they had the keys and codes to access the roof, and the alarm never went off. Second, how did she get into the tank? These cisterns stood on a 5-foot-tall concrete platform. Elisa, who was 5'4", would have had to climb the platform, then scale the 10-foot tank itself, likely using a series of pipes on the side. Once at the top, she would have had to lift the main hatch. This circular metal lid weighed around 20 pounds. It wasn't impossible to lift, but it was heavy and awkward. And she would have had to do all of this alone in the dark. And the most disturbing question of all: if she got in by herself, how was the lid closed? Some reports claim the hatch was found open by the maintenance worker, while others, including the coroner's report, stated it was closed. If it was closed, it would have been impossible for her to close the heavy lid from the inside. If it was open, why didn't anyone spot it sooner? The discovery of Elisa Lam's body didn't end the mystery. It plunged it into a much deeper, darker abyss. To understand how investigators tried to make sense of this impossible scene, we have to go back 19 days. Back to January 31st, the day Elisa was officially reported missing. Elisa had been in constant contact with her parents back in British Columbia, Canada. It was a family tradition. They spoke every single day without fail. So when January 31st came and went with no call, her parents knew immediately that something was wrong. They weren't just worried, they were terrified. They called the police in Los Angeles and filed a missing persons report. They got on the next flight to California to help with the search. The LAPD's initial investigation started, as it always does, at the last place she was seen, the Cecil Hotel. They searched her shared 5th-floor room. Her belongings were all there: her laptop, her wallet, her identification, her prescription medications. Everything a person would normally take with them if they were planning on leaving was still sitting in her room. It looked like she had just stepped out for a moment and was planning on coming right back. Detectives interviewed hotel staff and the few guests who remembered seeing her. They described her as friendly, outgoing, but perhaps a little odd. She had initially been assigned to a shared hostel-style room, but her roommates had complained about her strange behavior, and she was moved to a private room on the same floor after 2 days. The nature of this behavior was never officially specified. The police then brought in search dogs. This is a critical detail. The canine unit swept the entire hotel, from the lobby to the roof. The dogs were able to pick up Elisa's scent in her room and in the hallway. But then the trail went cold right at the hotel's exit. They could trace her to the street and then nothing. This suggested she either left the hotel on foot and her scent was lost in the chaos of downtown LA, or she got into a vehicle. The dogs were also taken to the roof during this initial search. They sniffed around the entire area, including the water tanks. The dogs gave no indication, no alert, that Elisa's scent was anywhere near them. For days, the investigation stalled. The LAPD, along with Elisa's desperate family, canvassed the area. They put up flyers with her smiling face all over Skid Row and the surrounding neighborhoods, hoping someone had seen her. But no credible leads emerged. It was as if a ghost had checked into the Cecil Hotel and then simply evaporated into the city's smoggy air. Weeks passed. The media attention grew. A young Canadian tourist vanishing from a notorious downtown hotel was a compelling story. But with no new information, the case was growing cold. The police were at a dead end. They had searched the hotel. They had interviewed everyone they could. They had found no signs of foul play in her room, no ransom note, no activity on her bank accounts or cell phone. They had only one card left to play. It was a long shot, a move born of desperation. The hotel had security cameras, and the police had been reviewing the footage for weeks. Most of it was useless. But there was one piece of footage, a 4-minute clip from the morning of February 1st, that was different. It was the last time anyone ever saw Elisa Lam alive. The police decided to release this footage to the public. They hoped a pair of fresh eyes might spot something they had missed. A reflection in the elevator doors, a gesture they couldn't interpret, anything that could break the case open. On February 13th, nearly 2 weeks after she disappeared, the Los Angeles Police Department uploaded a video to their website titled, "Missing Person Elisa Lam." They hoped it would generate a lead. Instead, it would ignite a firestorm of speculation and turn a missing person case into a global obsession. Because what the world saw in that grainy 4-minute video was something no one could explain. The video, uploaded to the LAPD's website, is date-stamped January 31st, the day Elisa disappeared. The quality is what you'd expect from a cheap 2013-era security camera. It's grainy, washed out, and the frame rate is choppy. A timestamp ticks away in the bottom corner. The location is one of the Cecil Hotel's elevators. For 4 agonizing minutes, the world would peer through this murky window into the final moments of Elisa Lam's life. And what we see is utterly baffling. The clip begins. The elevator doors slide open, and Elisa walks in from the left. She's wearing a red, zip-up hoodie over a gray t-shirt, black shorts, and sandals. She looks relaxed, casual. She steps over to the control panel and presses a series of buttons. We can't see exactly which ones, but it's clearly more than one floor. She then steps back and waits in the corner, expecting the doors to close and the elevator to move. But it doesn't. The doors remain wide open. This is the first moment where things feel off. It's a minor annoyance we've all experienced, a faulty elevator. But here, it's the start of a descent into the bizarre. After a few seconds of waiting, Elisa cautiously approaches the open doors. She leans forward, her head popping out into the hallway. She peeks quickly to the right, then snaps her head to the left, looking far down the corridor. Her movements are quick, furtive, like a small animal checking for predators before leaving its burrow. She pulls back inside the elevator, seemingly satisfied that no one is there. But the doors still don't close. She moves again, this time pressing her body against the wall, trying to hide in the corner furthest from the door. Is she hiding from someone she just saw? Or someone she expects to see? A few more seconds pass. The doors defy all logic and stay open. Now she moves back to the control panel. She methodically presses several buttons again, running her finger down the column. Still nothing. The elevator remains stubbornly, unnervingly stationary. This is where her behavior shifts from cautious to deeply strange. Frustrated, or perhaps frightened, she steps out of the elevator into the hallway. She stands just to the left of the door, out of view for a moment, before shuffling back into the frame. She looks to her right, then to her left. And then she begins to gesture with her hands. It's this sequence, this silent, ghostly pantomime, that has been analyzed more than any other part of the video. Her hands move in a fluid, almost unnatural way. They float up, her fingers splayed. She twists her wrists, her palms facing up, then down. It's not the frantic gesturing of someone in a heated argument. Something else entirely. It looks like she's talking to someone, or something that is just out of the camera's view. Her arms move as if she's swimming through thick air, her fingers counting invisible items. At one point, she puts her hands to the side of her head, as if exasperated. Then she brings them together, almost prayer-like. Who is she talking to? The hallway appears completely empty. Is she playing a game? Is this a one-sided conversation? Or is she in the grip of a powerful delusion, interacting with the world only she can see? She looks back and forth from her invisible conversational partner to the empty hallway, a slight, almost playful smile flickering on her face for a moment before vanishing. The whole display lasts for nearly a minute. A silent, deeply unsettling dance with an unseen partner. Then, as abruptly as it began, she stops. She turns and walks away, down the hallway to the left, and disappears from the camera's view entirely. She is never seen alive again. For a full 30 seconds after she leaves, the camera just stares at the empty elevator. The doors, which had refused to close for over 2.5 minutes while she was there, now suddenly slide shut. The ordeal seems to be over. But then the video delivers one final chilling twist. The doors slide open again. They pause as if waiting for a passenger. Then they close. They open one more time, then close for a final time. The elevator appears to cycle through several floors, the camera capturing the brief flashes of different floor numbers lighting up on the panel. It's as if the machine, held in place by some unseen force while Elisa was present, was finally released the moment she was gone. The video ends. For minutes of raw, inexplicable footage, the LAPD had hoped for a clue, a face in the background, a voice, anything. They got nothing. But the internet got a mystery that was more compelling than any fictional horror movie. The video exploded online. It was posted on Reddit, on YouTube, on forums dedicated to true crime and the paranormal. Within days, it had millions of views. And with those views came an avalanche of theories. Everyone became a detective. The video was slowed down, stabilized, and enhanced. Audio was analyzed for faint whispers. Every pixel was scrutinized. And from this global crowdsourced investigation, four major schools of thought emerged. The first and most straightforward was that Elisa was not alone. Her behavior, her peeking out of the elevator, her strange hand gestures, it all pointed to an interaction. The theory was that she was hiding from a pursuer, that someone was just off camera threatening her, or perhaps playing a cruel game of hide and seek. She presses multiple floor buttons to try and escape, but her pursuer is holding the door open button from the outside. Her hand gestures are an attempt to reason with them, or a sign of panicked submission. When she finally walks away, it's because she's either being led away or has given up trying to escape. This theory made sense. It was logical, but it had one major problem. Police and hotel staff reviewed all the other security footage from that night. They saw Elisa enter the hotel alone. They saw her walk to the elevators alone. And in the hallway outside that elevator, for the entire duration of the video, there was no one else there. The second theory was that Elisa was under the influence of drugs. Los Angeles has a dark history with illicit substances, and the Cecil Hotel was right in the middle of Skid Row. Perhaps she had taken something, LSD, PCP, some kind of hallucinogen that caused this bizarre paranoid behavior. It would explain the conversation with an invisible person, the erratic movements, the seeming disconnect from reality. This was a plausible explanation for her actions, but it didn't explain the elevator. Why did it malfunction so specifically when she was there, and work perfectly the moment she left? And it didn't answer the ultimate question. How did she get from that hallway to her final horrifying destination? The third theory was more personal and more tragic. It centered on Elisa's known mental health struggles. She had been diagnosed with bipolar disorder and depression. The people closest to her knew she was on a combination of medications to manage her condition. The theory here was that Elisa was experiencing a severe psychotic episode. Perhaps she had stopped taking her medication, or was on the wrong dosage. In this state, the mind can create vivid hallucinations. The person she was talking to in the hallway wasn't a ghost or a physical threat. It was a product of her own fractured psyche. Her behavior wasn't a game. It was a desperate struggle against her own mind. This theory was heartbreaking, and it fit many of the facts. It explained her erratic behavior without needing a second person or drugs. But again, it left a crucial piece of the puzzle missing. A psychotic episode could explain what she was doing, but it couldn't explain what happened next. And that led to the fourth and by far the most popular theory, the one that turned the case of Elisa Lam from a sad mystery into a modern ghost story. This theory proposed that what we were seeing wasn't a crime, a drug trip, or a mental breakdown. It was something paranormal. The Cecil Hotel, with its decades of death and darkness, was finally showing its hand. Elisa wasn't hiding from a person. She was hiding from a spirit. She wasn't talking to herself. She was communicating with a ghostly entity only she could see. The elevator wasn't malfunctioning. It was being held by a malevolent force. To thousands of online sleuths, this was the only explanation that fit all the bizarre evidence. Elisa Lam, they claimed, hadn't just checked into a hotel. She had stumbled into a place of profound evil. And in that grainy elevator footage, we were all watching her lose a battle with the supernatural. For theories, each with its own followers, its own evidence, its own logic. But they were all just speculation, born from 4 minutes of silent, ghostly footage. While the world debated online, the LAPD was still on the ground, dealing with a very real missing person. The video had made the case a global phenomenon, but it hadn't brought them a single inch closer to finding her. Days turned into weeks. The search continued, the media frenzy grew, and the guests at the Cecil Hotel went about their business, completely unaware that the answer to the entire mystery was looming just a few floors above them. The complaint started as a trickle, then became a flood. Guests on the upper floors of the Cecil Hotel began calling the front desk with a series of bizarre and frankly disgusting problems. The water pressure was pitifully low. Sometimes it would just stop altogether, leaving them stranded mid-shower. When it did flow, it came out with a strange, dark, almost blackish color for the first few seconds before clearing up. And then there was the taste. A sweetish, sickening taste that lingered on the tongue. Some said it was metallic. Others just said it was foul. Imagine being one of those guests. You're in a budget hotel in a rough part of Los Angeles. You're not expecting the Ritz-Carlton, but you are expecting basic sanitation. You turn on the tap to brush your teeth, and the water that fills your cup has a weird, filmy appearance and a taste you can't quite place but you know is wrong. You take a shower and the water feels off. It has a strange odor. You chalk it up to old pipes, to being in a historic rundown building. You complain to the front desk, they apologize, maybe offer you some bottled water, and you try to forget about it. You go about your day exploring the city, and then you come back to your room, turn on the news, and see the face of a missing young woman, Elisa Lam, who was last seen right there in the very hotel you're staying in. You feel a brief pang of sympathy, a shiver of unease, and then you go to bed, never once connecting your gross tap water to the missing person case that's consuming the city. For 8 days, guests used this water. They drank it. They bathed their children in it. They brushed their teeth with it. For 8 days, the problem got progressively worse. Finally, on the morning of February 19, 2013, 19 days after Elisa was last seen, the guest complaints reached a breaking point. The hotel management knew they couldn't ignore it any longer. They had to figure out what was blocking the pipes. They called the hotel's maintenance man, Santiago Lopez. Lopez had worked at the Cecil for years. He knew its labyrinthine corridors, its creaking elevators, its groaning, ancient plumbing system better than anyone. This wasn't the first time he dealt with the water pressure issue. He grabbed his tools and started his methodical search. He checked the pipes on the lower floors, then worked his way up. Everything seemed normal. The problem, he reasoned, had to be at the source. The massive water cisterns on the hotel's roof. Getting to the roof of the Cecil wasn't a simple walk through a door. It was a restricted area, locked and alarmed to prevent guests or intruders from gaining access. Lopez, with his master keys, was one of the few people who could get up there. He took a service elevator to the top floor, then climbed a final staircase that led to a small landing. From there, a heavy alarm door opened out onto the sprawling flat roof of the 14-story building. The Los Angeles skyline stretched out before him, a stark contrast to the gritty reality of the rooftop. It was a utilitarian space, filled with air conditioning units, vents, and pipes. And over in one corner, standing like 4 monolithic black sentinels, were the hotel's main water tanks. Each tank was about 10 feet tall and 4.5 feet in diameter, cylindrical and made of metal. Each held approximately 1,000 gallons of water, supplying the entire hotel, from the guest rooms to the kitchen to the coffee shop in the lobby, with the water everyone had been complaining about. Lopez approached the tanks. They were raised on a concrete platform, requiring him to climb a short ladder to reach the top. He started with the tank closest to him. His job was to check the water levels and look for any obvious blockages. He scaled the ladder, his boots clanging against the metal rungs. When he reached the top, he peered down at the main hatch. It was a heavy circular metal lid, about 20 inches in diameter, and it was closed. This immediately struck him as odd. The lids were heavy to prevent contamination. They shouldn't be open, but what he was looking for was a blockage inside the tank. He leaned over, using his strength to heave the heavy lid open. The moment he lifted it, a smell hit him, a smell he couldn't immediately identify, but one that his instincts told him was deeply, profoundly wrong. He peered into the dark opening, into the murky water that was only about 3/4 full, and that's when he saw it. First, it was just a shape, something pale and unnatural floating just below the surface. He squinted, his mind refusing to process what his eyes were seeing. It looked human. Face up in the dark water was a body, a woman. Her skin was a ghostly white, her hair fanned out around her head like a dark halo. She was naked. Her clothes, the same red hoodie and black shorts she wore in the elevator video, were floating in the water near her, along with her room key and watch. For a moment, Santiago Lopez was paralyzed. The shock, the horror, the sheer impossibility of it all. He was just a maintenance man there to fix the water pressure. And now he was staring at a dead body inside the hotel's water supply. He slammed the lid shut, his heart hammering against his ribs. He scrambled down the ladder, his hands shaking, and immediately called his supervisor. "There is a body in the water tank," he managed to say, his voice trembling. Within minutes, the rooftop of the Cecil Hotel was swarming with police. The LAPD, firefighters, and paramedics converged on the scene, their sirens cutting through the morning air of Skid Row. They confirmed Lopez's discovery. It was indeed the body of a young woman, decomposing in the water tank. The search for Elisa Lam was over. The news broke almost immediately, and it spread like wildfire. The missing tourist from the viral elevator video had been found, but the location of the discovery sent a wave of revulsion and horror through the public, and most acutely, through the guests still staying at the Cecil Hotel. The realization dawned on them with sickening clarity. The low pressure, the black water, the foul taste. For over 2 weeks, they had been consuming water that a dead body was decomposing in. The Los Angeles County Department of Public Health issued a do not drink order for the hotel. Health officials descended on the Cecil, taking water samples and running tests. The results came back positive for fecal coliforms, bacteria indicating the presence of waste. Miraculously, they declared the water did not contain any disease-causing bacteria and was technically safe from a live pathogen standpoint, likely due to the chlorine used to treat the city's water supply. But that was little comfort to the people who had been living with it. Journalists flocked to the hotel, shoving microphones in the faces of horrified guests who were now hastily checking out. One British couple, Sabrina and Michael Baugh, had been staying at the Cecil for 8 days. They gave a now infamous interview. "The water had a funny, sweet, disgusting taste," Sabrina told a reporter. "It's a very strange taste. I can barely describe it." She spoke of showering in it, brushing her teeth with it, drinking it. Michael added, "It makes you feel sick, to be honest. You feel physically sick. The thought of it is just awful." They, like all the other guests, were offered alternative accommodations and vouchers for a night, a paltry compensation for the psychological trauma they had just endured. The discovery of Elisa Lam's body didn't close the case. It blew it wide open, creating a whole new set of questions, each one more baffling than the last. The rooftop was a restricted area. The door was locked and alarmed. How did Elisa, a guest with no special access, get up there in the first place? And even if she did manage to bypass the security, there was the final, most daunting question of all. How did she get inside the tank? The tanks were nearly 10 feet tall. There was no fixed ladder on the outside of the tanks themselves. And the lid that Santiago Lopez had struggled to open, was a heavy piece of solid metal. How could a slight 5'4" woman, alone on a dark rooftop, have possibly climbed to the top, lifted that heavy lid, and then gotten inside, pulling it closed behind her? Seemed physically impossible. The answer to where Elisa was had been found, but the questions of how and why had just become 1,000 times more complex. The police now faced a paradox wrapped in an enigma: a body in a sealed water tank on a locked, alarmed roof of a hotel teeming with residents. The Cecil's maintenance chief, Santiago Lopez, was the man who found her. And he was the one who explained to the LAPD just how impossible this scenario was. He told them there were only 4 ways to get to the roof. 3 were fire escapes on the sides of the building. The 4th was a set of stairs inside. But the door at the top of those stairs was kept locked. And not just locked. It was equipped with an alarm that would have automatically notified the front desk the second it was opened. He confirmed the alarm was working. So how did she get past a locked alarm door? Only hotel employees had the key. And Lopez was adamant that no alarm had gone off. This single detail sent a chill through the investigation. If the alarm didn't sound, it meant one of 2 things. Either the alarm was secretly malfunctioning, a fact no one had noticed, or Elisa had been taken to the roof by someone with a key. Someone who knew how to bypass the security. An employee. Suddenly, every single person working at the Cecil Hotel was under a cloud of suspicion. But let's say for a moment that she did find a way. Maybe she scaled a fire escape, a dangerous climb in the dark. Or maybe the door alarm was broken, and she found it unlocked. She's now on the roof, Before her stand 4 10-foot-tall water tanks. These are industrial-grade cisterns, behemoths of metal and concrete. There were no permanent ladders leading to the top of them. Maintenance workers had to bring their own ladder whenever they needed to perform service. The police searched the roof. There was no ladder anywhere. How does a woman 5'4" and barely 120 pounds climb a 10-foot-tall, sheer-sided tank with no ladder? And even if she managed that incredible feat of athleticism, she would then be confronted with the lid. The lid to the water tank was a massive heavy metal disc. It was so heavy that Santiago Lopez himself said he struggled to lift it. It took significant effort for a grown man to open. Could Elisa alone have lifted that hatch? And if she did, how did she then get inside the tank and pull that same heavy lid closed from the inside? It defies logic. It defies physics. Closing it from the outside is one thing, but to climb in and then pull it shut over your own head? It's a feat that seems to require an impossible combination of strength, leverage, and coordination. The Los Angeles Fire Department had to be called in to solve the grim puzzle of just getting her out. They couldn't simply lift her through the small opening at the top. So, they were forced to make a decision that would later complicate the investigation. They had to drain the entire tank. Then firefighters had to cut a new hole in the side of the massive cylinder, a square of metal peeled back like a sardine can, just to retrieve her body. Elisa was found completely naked. Her clothes, the same black shorts and purple hoodie seen in the elevator video, were found in the bottom of the tank, floating in the water beside her. They were covered in what the coroner's report described as a sand-like particulate. Her watch and her room key were also found with her. The discovery of her clothes only raised more questions. If she was murdered and thrown in, why would the killer take the time to undress her? And if she entered the tank herself, why did she take her clothes off? Was she hot? Disoriented? Was this part of some bizarre ritual? The case was now officially in the hands of the Los Angeles County Coroner's Office. The world, which had been captivated by the video of a frightened girl in an elevator, was now waiting for an answer. Foul play seemed like the only logical explanation. The media, the public, the online sleuths, everyone was convinced this was a homicide. The Cecil Hotel, with its sordid history, was the perfect backdrop for a brutal murder. The impossible location of the body was the perfect signature of a clever, sadistic killer. The autopsy, everyone believed, would reveal the final violent moments of her life. It would show signs of a struggle, of assault, of the trauma that must have led to her death. On February 21st, 2 days after her body was found, the coroner released their findings. The report was a bombshell, but not in the way anyone expected. The full autopsy, conducted by Dr. Jason So, found no evidence of physical trauma. No cuts, no bruises, no scratches, no signs of a struggle whatsoever. There was no indication of sexual assault. Her body had not been broken or battered. She hadn't been bludgeoned or stabbed. The official cause of death was listed as accidental drowning. Accidental. And the toxicology report was even more stunning. In the age of social media, the immediate theory after the elevator video went viral was that Elisa was high. People assumed she was on hallucinogens, bath salts, PCP, something that would explain her frantic, erratic behavior. But the toxicology screen came back clean. There were no traces of alcohol, no illegal drugs like cocaine, heroin, or methamphetamine. Nothing. The only substances found in her system were her prescribed medications for bipolar disorder and depression, lamotrigine, quetiapine, and they were present only at therapeutic levels. This meant she had been taking her medication as prescribed. She wasn't overdosing, nor was she completely off her meds. A third medication, a tricyclic antidepressant, was also present, but at a level so low it suggested she may have recently stopped taking it or was in the process of weaning herself off it. This official ruling was, to many, more unbelievable than any conspiracy theory. Accidental drowning? How could a person accidentally climb a 10-foot tank, lift a heavy lid, get inside, and pull the lid closed, all without any assistance? The coroner's report offered a single, crucial phrase as a contributing factor: bipolar disorder. The investigation now pivoted away from the search for an external monster, a killer lurking in the shadows of the Cecil. It turned inward, toward the complex and often misunderstood landscape of the human mind. The LAPD officially closed the case. To them it was a tragedy but not a crime. A young woman, likely in the midst of a severe psychotic episode, had brought about her own bizarre death. But for her family, and for the millions of people following the case, this was not an answer. It felt like an abandonment of the truth. Her family filed a wrongful death lawsuit against the Cecil Hotel, arguing that the hotel was negligent, that they had a duty to secure the areas of the hotel that posed a risk to guests, including the roof and the water tanks. They argued that it was the hotel's failure to maintain a safe environment that led directly to their daughter's death. They couldn't accept that this was just an accident. And they weren't alone. The official explanation felt incomplete, hollow. It didn't account for the sheer physical impossibility of the act. It didn't explain how she got past the locked alarm door. And it didn't explain her behavior in the elevator. In fact, it recontextualized that video entirely. We were no longer necessarily watching a woman hiding from a pursuer. Instead, the coroner's report suggested we might be watching something far more private and terrifying. The visible manifestation of a mind at war with itself. A young woman not running from a person, but from the phantoms created by her own brain chemistry. The question was no longer just, who did this to Elisa Lam? It had become, what was happening inside Elisa Lam's head? To understand what was happening inside Elisa Lam's head, investigators had to look beyond the Cecil Hotel, beyond Los Angeles, and into her medical history. And what they found changed everything. Elisa's family informed the LAPD that their daughter had been diagnosed with a severe form of bipolar disorder, specifically bipolar I. They also told police she was on a cocktail of 4 different, powerful prescription medications to manage it. Suddenly, the strange behavior wasn't just strange anymore. It was a potential symptom. For those unfamiliar, bipolar disorder is not simply mood swings. It's a serious mental illness characterized by extreme shifts in mood, energy, and activity levels. A person with bipolar I experiences full-blown manic episodes. These aren't just periods of feeling happy or energetic. A manic episode can be a state of euphoric, almost superhuman energy, with racing thoughts, decreased need for sleep, and impulsive, often risky behavior. It can feel like your brain is a runaway freight train, and you're just a passenger. And on the other side of that peak is the crushing, debilitating low of a major depressive episode. A valley so deep it can feel impossible to climb out of. Managing this condition is a delicate balancing act. A chemical tightrope walk that requires consistent, precise medication. Elisa was prescribed Lamictal, a mood stabilizer, Seroquel, an antipsychotic used to treat mania and psychosis, and 2 antidepressants, Wellbutrin and Effexor. This combination of drugs tells a story in itself. It's the kind of regimen prescribed to someone fighting a significant, complex battle with their own brain chemistry. These medications were her anchor, the very things that kept her tethered to reality. With this new information, investigators started to look at her entire trip differently. A young woman traveling alone, spontaneously adding new cities to her itinerary, meeting strangers, writing prolifically in a public blog for all the world to see. Was this just youthful wanderlust? Or was it something more? Was it, perhaps, the beginning of a hypomanic episode, a less severe form of mania where creativity and sociability are heightened, but judgment starts to fray at the edges? Her blog, which she titled Ether Fields, became a crucial window into her state of mind. In posts written just weeks before her trip, she was clearly struggling with a depressive episode. She wrote about a relapse, about feeling directionless and crippled by her own mind. She posted a quote from the author Chuck Palahniuk. "You are always haunted by the idea you're wasting your life." Her trip to the West Coast, which she called her West Coast Tour, may have been an attempt to outrun that depression, to chase a high and escape the low. But it was her behavior at the Cecil Hotel that raised the most flags. On January 28, just 3 days before she disappeared, hotel staff noticed she was acting strangely. She was initially placed in a hostel-style shared room, what they called the Stay on Main. But her roommates complained. They said she was acting erratically, leaving odd, cryptic notes on their beds that said things like "go home" and "go away." She was described as being disruptive and difficult to communicate with. As a result, the hotel staff moved her into a private room on the same floor, the very room she would be staying in when she vanished. This wasn't just a quirky tourist. This was someone whose behavior was actively unsettling those around her. This was a clear sign that something was wrong. And then came the toxicology report. When the coroner's office finally released its findings, it contained the single most important clue in the entire investigation. It was the key that unlocked the mystery of the elevator video. The medical examiner tested Elisa's blood for a wide range of substances, including alcohol and illegal drugs. All of those tests came back negative. She was completely sober. But they also tested for her prescription medications. They found traces of Wellbutrin and Effexor, her antidepressants. They found Cinetab and ibuprofen, suggesting she may have had a cold. But what they did not find were therapeutic levels of her most critical medications: Lamictal, her mood stabilizer, and Seroquel, her antipsychotic. In fact, it's unclear if they found any of her mood stabilizer at all. This was the bombshell. Elisa Lam was systematically under-medicating. Whether she chose to or simply forgot to, the result was the same. She had stepped off the chemical tightrope. For someone with bipolar I, abruptly stopping mood stabilizers and antipsychotics can be catastrophic. It can trigger a severe manic episode, and with that, the potential for full-blown psychosis, a complete break from reality. Psychosis isn't just seeing or hearing things. It's a state where your brain can no longer distinguish between what is real and what is not. It can involve intense paranoia, the unshakable belief that you are being watched, followed, or hunted. It can involve terrifying hallucinations, both visual and auditory. It warps your perception of the world into a nightmare landscape where nothing can be trusted, least of all your own senses. Now watch the elevator video again with that in mind. A young woman alone. She rushes into the elevator, frantically pressing multiple buttons, as if in a desperate escape. She cowers in the corner, peering out into the hallway, then jumping back in as if she's seen something terrifying. But the hallway is empty. She steps out, her arms and hands moving in strange, disjointed ways, her fingers splayed. Is she waving at someone? Or is she gesturing at something only she can see? She appears to be talking, arguing, pleading with an invisible entity. She hides, she gestures, she seems to be playing a game of hide-and-seek with a phantom. This is no longer a woman interacting with a physical pursuer. This is a portrait of a psychotic episode. The person she's running from, the person she's hiding from, isn't in the hallway. That person is in her head. The paranoia, the fear, the disjointed movements. It all aligns perfectly with the devastating effects of a mind unmoored from reality due to a lack of necessary medication. The elevator video wasn't a clue to a murder. It was a 4-minute recording of a young woman's tragic and terrifying descent into psychosis. She wasn't being hunted by a killer. She was being haunted by her own illness. This theory explained her bizarre behavior. It explained why no one else was ever seen on the security footage. It provided a powerful, evidence-based answer to the question of what was happening to her. But it also raised a new, even more baffling question. If Elisa Lam was in the throes of a severe psychotic episode, lost in a world of paranoia and hallucinations, how did she accomplish what happened next? How did a lone, disoriented young woman manage to get to a place that was designed to be inaccessible? How did she get onto the hotel's roof, a roof that was locked and alarmed? And even if she managed that, how in the world did she get inside a 10-foot-tall, sealed water tank and pull the heavy lid closed behind her? The psychological mystery may have been solved, but a seemingly impossible physical mystery had just begun. To understand the sheer improbability of the scene, you have to picture the roof of the Cecil Hotel. It's not a rooftop lounge. It's a restricted industrial space. Getting there was the first impossible step. There were only 2 ways to access the roof from inside the hotel. The first was a locked door. Not just locked, but equipped with an alarm system that would notify hotel staff and security the second it was opened. The police confirmed the alarm was working, and there's no record of it ever being triggered. This immediately raises a red flag. If Elisa couldn't have gone through the main door without setting off an alarm, how did she get there? This leaves only one other option, the one that authorities settled on, the fire escape. But this explanation is, in many ways, even more unbelievable. The fire escape at the Cecil wasn't the kind you see in the movies, with a convenient ladder that drops to the ground. To even get onto it, Elisa would have had to climb out of a specific window on the 14th floor, a floor she wasn't staying on. She would have to hoist herself up and out, onto a narrow metal platform, 14 stories above the streets of Los Angeles. From there, she would have to climb the rattling vertical ladder of the fire escape even higher, up onto the roof itself. Think about that journey for a moment. A young woman, in the midst of a severe bipolar episode, disoriented and likely terrified, navigating a perilous climb in the dark. A climb that would be challenging for a trained athlete in broad daylight. One wrong move, one slip, and the story would have ended right there on the pavement below. Many who have looked into this case, including journalists and former residents of the hotel, find this scenario utterly implausible. They argue that the fire escape was difficult to access and even more difficult to climb. Yet, according to the official report, this is exactly what happened. She made an impossible climb alone and arrived on the roof unseen and unheard. But getting to the roof was only the first hurdle. The real impossibility was waiting for her up there. On the roof stood 4 large cylindrical water tanks. Each one was 10 feet tall and 4.5 feet in diameter, holding about 1,000 gallons of water. They were mounted on a 5-foot-tall concrete base, meaning the top of the tanks were 15 feet off the roof floor. To get to the top of any of them, she would have had to climb yet another ladder, this one fixed to the side of the concrete platform. So let's trace the official theory's path. Elisa, having just completed a harrowing climb up the fire escape, now navigates across the dark rooftop. She identifies one of these massive water tanks, climbs the ladder to its top, and is now standing on a narrow rim, 10 feet above the water inside, 15 feet above the concrete roof. And here is where the physical mystery deepens to a point of near absurdity. The opening to the tank was covered by a heavy metal lid. It wasn't a lightweight cap. Maintenance workers described it as being so heavy that it was difficult for one person to lift and move. Somehow, in her agitated state, Elisa Lam, who was just 5'4", had to find the strength to lift this heavy metal hatch all by herself. After pulling it open, she would have then had to get inside the tank. This wasn't a simple step. She would have to lower herself into the pitch-black water, 10 feet down with no ladder on the inside. It would have been a blind drop into cold, dark water. And then we reach the single most confounding detail of the entire case. The detail that fuels nearly every conspiracy theory and casts the most doubt on the official conclusion. The hotel maintenance worker who found her, Santiago Lopez, was explicit in his statement. When he went to investigate the low water pressure, he climbed up and found the hatch to the water tank closed. Not ajar. Not resting on the side. It was closed. Let that sink in. If Elisa Lam climbed into that tank on her own, how could she have possibly pulled that heavy, cumbersome lid closed over the opening from the inside? It's a physical contradiction. You can't lower yourself into a hole and then pull a heavy lid over that same hole. It defies basic physics. This one fact, the closed lid, completely unravels the official narrative of an accidental drowning. An accident requires a sequence of plausible events. This sequence is not plausible, feels impossible, and it forces us to ask a terrifying question. If she didn't close the lid herself, who did? The state of her body adds another layer of strangeness. Elisa was found completely naked. Her clothes, the same ones she was wearing in the elevator video, were found in the tank with her, floating in the water. Her watch and her room key were also found at the bottom of the tank. Why was she naked? The coroner's report offers a potential, if unsettling, scientific explanation. It's a phenomenon known as paradoxical undressing. It's something that sometimes occurs in the final stages of hypothermia. As a person freezes to death, their nerves are damaged, and their brain becomes confused. They experience a sudden, overwhelming sensation of being hot, causing them to frantically tear off their clothes, believing they are burning up, even as they are freezing. It's a tragic final act of a dying mind. So, it's possible that after entering the cold water, hypothermia set in, and in her delirium, she removed her own clothing. But this explanation, while scientifically sound, still hinges on her getting into the tank in the first place and the lid being closed after her. The paradoxical undressing explains the nudity, but it doesn't explain how she got into a sealed container. The theory of her bipolar episode explains her bizarre behavior in the elevator, but it doesn't grant her superhuman strength or the ability to defy logic and physics. Every official explanation for what happened on that roof seems to create more questions than answers. If she climbed the fire escape, how did she manage such a dangerous feat in her condition? If she got to the tank, how did a small woman lift a heavy industrial lid? And most critically, if she got inside, how on earth did that lid get closed behind her? The police, faced with these contradictions, conducted their investigation. They swept the hotel for evidence. They reviewed hours of security footage from every camera in the building. They found no evidence of anyone else on the roof that night. No sign of a struggle. No fingerprints on the tank ladder or lid other than what might be expected from maintenance. The alarm on the main roof door was never triggered. In the eyes of law enforcement, there was no evidence of foul play. No suspect. No motive. There was just Elisa, the elevator, and the water tank. And so, they were left with a conclusion that satisfied no one. They ruled her death an accidental drowning, with her bipolar disorder being a significant contributing factor. They essentially argued that in her manic state, she performed a series of physically improbable, almost superhuman acts, which led to her accidentally drowning in a water tank, and that somehow the lid managed to close behind her. Case closed. But for the internet, and for anyone who looked closely at the facts, the case was anything but closed. The official story felt less like an explanation and more like a convenient way to file away an inconvenient mystery. The gap between what was possible and what the authorities claimed happened was simply too wide to ignore. The closed lid wasn't just a piece of evidence. It was a silent witness, a piece of metal that screamed that there had to be more to the story. It suggested another person had to have been on that roof. Someone who could lift the lid, and more importantly, someone who could put it back on. And with that single heavy piece of evidence, the case was thrown into chaos once again. The Los Angeles Police Department, which had been treating this as a missing person case with a tragic accidental end, now had to seriously confront the specter of homicide. Because if Elisa couldn't have closed that lid herself, then someone else did. The question was who? The Cecil Hotel at that moment transformed from a simple location into a container of suspects. Every guest, every employee, every shadow in its long dark hallways was now a potential variable in a murder investigation. Detectives began with the most logical group, the hotel staff. They were the ones with the master keys, the ones who knew the building's labyrinthine layout, its secret stairways and its restricted areas. They had the access. The problem was motive. By all accounts, Elisa Lam was a pleasant, if quiet, guest. She had no known conflicts with any of the staff. Background checks were run, interviews were conducted, and alibis were scrutinized. Nothing. No one had a record or a reason that would point to them being a killer. The hotel's own security systems, as we know, were spotty at best, offering no clear footage of anyone following Elisa or accessing the roof with her. Then there were the other guests. This was an even bigger nightmare for investigators. The Cecil was a budget hotel, a place of transient souls. People checked in and out daily, coming from all over the country, all over the world. By the time Elisa's body was found, countless potential witnesses or suspects could have been hundreds or thousands of miles away. It was like trying to find one specific grain of sand on a beach that was constantly being washed away by the tide. The police did their due diligence, but without a specific person of interest to focus on, they were chasing ghosts. But the internet had found a ghost of its own, and it was convinced it had found Elisa Lam's killer. His name was Pablo Vergara, a death metal musician from Mexico who went by the stage name Morbid. As online sleuths dug deeper into the case, they stumbled upon his music videos, and what they saw sent a chill down the spine of the entire web sleuthing community. 1 year before Elisa Lam's death, Morbid had stayed at the Cecil Hotel. That was the first eerie coincidence. But it was his art that turned him from a person of interest into the internet's prime suspect. He had posted a music video for a song titled "Died in Pain." The video's narrative was shockingly similar to the darkest theories about Elisa's fate. It depicted a young woman being chased, running for her life, and ultimately being murdered and dumped in water. The parallels were uncanny. A girl pursued, ending up dead in water. And the creator of this video had stayed at the very same hotel. The online frenzy exploded. Morbid's social media was flooded with accusations. People dissected his lyrics, his imagery, his online posts, searching for confessions hidden in plain sight. They pointed to his dark, gothic aesthetic and his music's violent themes as proof of a murderous personality. To thousands of people following the case online, it all fit together perfectly. He was a monster hiding in plain sight, using his art as a twisted form of confession. They had found their man. The pressure on the LAPD to investigate him was immense. And they did. The police looked into Pablo Vergara. But the internet's perfect theory quickly crumbled under the weight of one simple, indisputable fact: an alibi. At the time of Elisa Lam's disappearance and death, Vergara wasn't in Los Angeles. He wasn't even in the United States. He was in Mexico recording a new album. His travel records, studio receipts, and witness statements all confirmed it. He was innocent. The supposed connections were nothing more than a series of deeply unfortunate, deeply unsettling coincidences. The internet had found its killer, but it was the wrong man. The ordeal nearly destroyed his career and his life, a chilling reminder of the dangers of digital witch hunts. With their most promising, albeit public-generated, lead evaporated, the LAPD was back at square one. They had no suspects, no witnesses, no signs of forced entry to the roof, and no clear motive for anyone to harm Elisa Lam. The case was growing colder by the day. The only thing left to speak for Elisa was her own body. And so, the focus of the investigation shifted from the sprawling, confusing hotel to the sterile, quiet environment of the coroner's office. The autopsy was the last best hope for a clear answer. When the full autopsy report was finally completed on February 21st, it only deepened the mystery. The medical examiner, Dr. Jason So, conducted a thorough external and internal examination. Externally, there were no signs of significant trauma. No cuts, no bruises, no defensive wounds on her hands or arms that would suggest she fought off an attacker. There was no evidence of sexual assault. Whatever happened to her on that roof, it did not appear to have been a violent struggle. Internally, the findings were consistent with drowning. Her lungs were full of water, matching the water from the tank. The cause of death was officially listed as drowning, but it was the manner of death that left everyone stunned. The coroner checked the box for accident. He concluded that there was not enough evidence to support homicide. And then he added another finding, a crucial piece of context listed under other significant conditions. Elisa Lam had bipolar disorder. This finding was the direct result of the toxicology screening. When they tested her blood, they were looking for illegal drugs, alcohol, or date rape drugs. Anything that might suggest foul play or impaired judgment. They found no alcohol. They found no illicit substances like cocaine, heroin, or MDMA. What they did find were trace amounts of her prescription medications. Specifically, they found Wellbutrin, an antidepressant, lamotrigine, a mood stabilizer, and Seroquel, an antipsychotic. She also had a non-prescription pain reliever, ibuprofen, in her system. On the surface, this seemed straightforward. She was taking medication for a known condition. But the toxicologists looked closer, not just at what was in her system, but at how much. And that's where they found the key. The levels of her prescribed medications were incredibly low. The report indicated that she had been taking her antidepressant, Wellbutrin, as prescribed. However, it appeared she had stopped taking her mood stabilizer and antipsychotic medication, or was at the very least underdosing, taking far less than she was supposed to. For someone with bipolar disorder, this is a critical and potentially dangerous state of affairs. Mood stabilizers and antipsychotics are the bedrock of treatment. They prevent the extreme mood swings, the deep depressions, and the manic episodes that can include psychosis, paranoia, and hallucinations. To suddenly stop taking them is to pull the foundation out from under your own mental stability. It can trigger the very symptoms the medication is designed to prevent. Suddenly, the bizarre behavior in the elevator video started to look very different. The LAPD, the public, the entire internet had been watching that footage trying to answer one question. Who was she hiding from? We were all looking for a second person, a physical threat in that hallway. But the toxicology report suggested a terrifying alternative. What if the threat wasn't in the hallway at all? What if the thing Elisa Lam was hiding from, the thing she was fighting, the thing she was trying to escape, was inside her own mind? What if she wasn't playing a game of hide and seek? What if she was in the midst of a severe psychotic episode, losing her grip on reality itself, one frame at a time? This medical evidence didn't just add a new chapter to the story. It forced everyone to go back and reread the entire book from the beginning. With this new lens of a severe bipolar episode, let's watch that infamous elevator video one more time. Suddenly, the puzzle pieces don't just fit. They snap into place with chilling clarity. What once looked like a woman playing a bizarre game of hide and seek with an unseen pursuer now looks like a woman battling demons only she can see. She steps into the elevator and presses a multitude of buttons. This isn't a playful act. In a state of paranoia, this could be a desperate attempt to get the doors to close, to get away from something. When the doors don't respond, her panic seems to escalate. She darts out, looks both ways down the hallway, then retreats back into the elevator, pressing herself into the corner as if to become invisible. She's not hiding from a person. She's hiding from a terrifying hallucination. The coast is never clear when the threat is inside your own mind. Her hands, moving in those strange fluid gestures, are no longer a cryptic code. They are the physical manifestation of a mind in turmoil. She could be trying to reason with her hallucinations, to ward something off, or simply be experiencing the disorganized thought patterns that are a hallmark of psychosis. She seems to be talking, whispering to someone just outside the elevator, and in her reality, someone was likely there. A figment of her illness, but to her, as real as the cold steel walls of the elevator car. And the single greatest mystery of the video, the door that wouldn't close, suddenly has a tragically simple explanation. On that particular model of elevator, there is a door hold button. If pressed, it keeps the doors open for a set period, usually around 2 minutes, to allow for luggage or carts to be loaded. In her frantic attempt to press all the buttons to make the elevator go, it is highly probable that Elisa inadvertently pressed the door hold button, trapping herself in a terrifying loop. The very thing she was doing to escape was the thing keeping her in place, feeding her paranoia that some outside force was controlling the elevator and preventing her from leaving. The supernatural force holding the door open was, most likely, her own finger. This recontextualization extends beyond the 4 minutes of footage. It illuminates all the other strange reports about her final days. Her roommates in the hostel portion of the Cecil, who had complained about her odd behavior, weren't just dealing with a quirky tourist. They were witnessing the early stages of a full-blown psychotic break. The bizarre notes she left on their beds, reading "Go home and go away," were likely products of her growing paranoia. She was eventually moved to a private room on the 14th floor, the same floor where the elevator video was filmed, not because she was a nuisance, but because her mental state was visibly and rapidly deteriorating. Her final known interactions with the outside world also paint a picture of this decline. She visited a bookstore nearby, buying books and music for her family back in British Columbia, a sign that a part of her was still grounded, still connected to the people she loved. But later that same day, she attended a live television show taping in Burbank. She was reportedly so disruptive and erratic during the taping that security had to escort her out. The contrast is stark: the loving daughter buying gifts, and the disturbed woman unable to control her behavior in a public setting. It was a mind at war with itself. Her Tumblr blog, which had been a vibrant outlet for her thoughts and creativity, became a reflection of her inner turmoil in the days leading up to her disappearance. She reblogged posts about anxiety, fear, and feeling lost. One of her final posts was a quote that read, "It is a supposedly fun thing to do, but in reality it is a depressing, meaningless task that will leave you feeling empty and alone." She was broadcasting her distress, but the signals were getting lost in the noise of the internet, interpreted as youthful angst rather than the desperate SOS calls they may have been. So, if Elisa was in the throes of a psychotic episode, believing she was being pursued, it provides a tragic but logical path to the hotel's roof. The Cecil Hotel had multiple ways to access the roof, primarily via the fire escape. While access was supposed to be restricted and alarmed, hotel staff later confirmed that the alarm on the main rooftop door was not functional at the time. For someone convinced they were in mortal danger, a fire escape is not a deterrent. It is the only logical path to safety. The roof would have seemed like the ultimate escape, a place high above her pursuers. Once on the roof, she would have seen the 4 large water cisterns. In a delusional state, her motivations become impossible for a rational mind to fully comprehend. Was she still trying to hide? A water tank is an extreme hiding place, but for a mind in an extreme state, it might make perfect sense. Did she believe the water held some sort of purifying property that could save her from whatever was tormenting her? Or, in a state of psychosis-induced paranoia, did she think her pursuers had contaminated the hotel's water supply, and she was climbing in to investigate or hide from the poisoned water? We can only speculate because the logic she was operating on was not the logic of our world. This brings us to the 2 most persistent arguments against this theory. How did she get in the tank, and how did the heavy lid get closed after her? The lid was indeed heavy, weighing around 20 pounds, but it wasn't sealed or locked. And a human being, particularly one fueled by the immense surge of adrenaline that comes with mania or extreme fear, is capable of surprising feats of strength. Pushing aside a 20-pound lid, while difficult, is far from impossible. She could have slid it open just enough to slip through the opening. Once inside, the immense shock and cold of the water, it was February in Los Angeles, would have been immediate. This is where the theory of paradoxical undressing comes into play. It's a well-documented phenomenon associated with hypothermia. As the body's core temperature plummets, confused nerve signals can create a sensation of intense, unbearable heat, causing the person to frantically remove their clothing. This would explain why Elisa's body was found naked, with her clothes, the same ones she wore in the elevator video, floating beside her in the water. And the lid? It may not have been fully closed. A maintenance worker found it closed, but he may not have noticed if it was slightly ajar. It's also possible that in her struggle, or simply due to the shifting water and gravity, the lid slid back into its closed position after she was inside. The simplest explanation is often the most likely. No accomplice was needed. No supernatural force was required. When you assemble these pieces, the narrative shifts from a ghostly horror story to a profound human tragedy. The monster wasn't in the Cecil Hotel's hallways. The monster wasn't a murderer or a ghost. The monster was a devastating illness that hijacked the mind of a bright, adventurous young woman and led her, step by terrifying step, to an unimaginable end in the dark, cold water atop a hotel in a city of strangers. The truth of what happened to Elisa Lam is, in many ways, more heartbreaking than any of the fictions we created for her. It's a story about the catastrophic failure to protect one of society's most vulnerable, and a chilling reminder of the terrifying fragility of the human mind. And in Elisa Lam's case, that fragility was compounded by a system that failed her and a public that turned her tragedy into a ghost story. The official coroner's report lists her cause of death as accidental drowning, with bipolar disorder as a significant contributing factor. For investigators, the case was closed, but for the internet, it was just the beginning. The lingering questions became the bedrock of a modern myth. How did she get to the roof? How did she get inside the tank? Who was she talking to in the elevator? The truth, when pieced together, is a mosaic of tragic probabilities. The rooftop doors, while typically locked, were not impenetrable fortresses. Maintenance staff used them regularly. It's entirely plausible she found an access point, like the fire escape, or simply followed a staff member, or found a door inadvertently left unlocked. In the throes of a manic episode, a person can be incredibly resourceful, driven by a logic that is utterly alien to a neurotypical mind. Then there's the water tank. The lid was reported to be incredibly heavy, impossible for a small woman to lift. But reports vary, and the lid was found open by the maintenance worker who discovered her. We also can't discount the power of adrenaline. During a psychotic episode, the body is flooded with it. Feats of strength that seem impossible in a calm state become achievable. But why would she get in? This is perhaps the most difficult part to comprehend. We are trying to apply rational thought to an irrational state of mind. People experiencing psychosis often feel persecuted, that they are being watched or chased. They seek refuge in bizarre places, closets, crawl spaces, or, in this tragic instance, perhaps a dark, secluded water tank seemed like the ultimate hiding spot. There's also the grim phenomenon of paradoxical undressing. It's often seen in cases of hypothermia. As a person freezes, their brain becomes confused, and they feel incredibly hot, causing them to remove their clothing. Elisa's body was found naked in the tank, her clothes floating beside her. It's possible that once in the cold water, this reflex took over. She may not have even been aware of what she was doing. And the elevator video, the very heart of the mystery, the strange hand gestures, the peering out into the hallway, the hiding. It wasn't a conversation with a ghost. It was a conversation with the phantoms of her own mind. The video is a 4-minute window into a terrifying psychotic break. She was likely experiencing hallucinations, paranoia, a complete detachment from reality. She was hiding from a threat that, to her, was as real as the steel doors of the elevator. The reason the doors didn't close is likely because she had pressed the door hold button, a feature in many elevators that keeps the doors open for an extended period for maintenance or moving. In her confused state, she might have hit it by accident while pressing multiple other buttons. What we are left with is not a single, inexplicable event, but a chain of devastatingly plausible ones. A young woman, far from home, stops taking her prescribed medication, or is taking an improper dosage. This triggers a severe manic episode, one of the most dangerous psychiatric emergencies. She becomes paranoid, disoriented, and desperate. She seeks to escape a perceived threat, leading her to the roof. She seeks a place to hide, leading her to the water tank. And once inside, she is unable to get out, succumbing to either drowning or hypothermia in the dark. This explanation is messy. It's uncomfortable. It lacks the clean, satisfying narrative of a murder mystery or a paranormal encounter. And so, the internet rejected it. In our hunger for a story, we created monsters. Web sleuths tore through every frame of the video, every post on her blog. They became convinced she was the victim of a conspiracy, a government experiment, or a copycat killer reenacting the plot of the 2005 horror film Dark Water. This speculation had real-world consequences. A death metal musician from Mexico, who went by the stage name Morbid, became the internet's prime suspect. Why? Because he had once posted a video of himself at the Cecil Hotel, and his music contained violent lyrics. That was it. That was the extent of the evidence. For years, this man, whose real name is Pablo Vergara, was relentlessly harassed, doxxed, and sent death threats. He received messages saying, "You're a murderer," and "I'm going to kill you." The cyberbullying was so severe it led to a nervous breakdown and a suicide attempt. He was a completely innocent man a world away, whose life was nearly destroyed because he fit a narrative that people wanted to believe. This is the dark underbelly of the Elisa Lam case. It reveals a disturbing truth about our culture. We consumed her story as entertainment. We treated her final, terrifying moments as a puzzle to be solved, a piece of spooky media to be shared and remixed. In doing so, we stripped away her humanity and ignored the very real, very painful truth of her illness. The Cecil Hotel itself became a character in this drama. Its sordid history as the home of serial killers and suicides provided the perfect Gothic backdrop. It allowed us to lean into the supernatural, to imagine the hotel itself as a malevolent entity. After Elisa's death, the Cecil's notoriety reached its peak. It became a pilgrimage site for ghost hunters and morbidly curious tourists, until it was finally closed in 2017 for a massive renovation, eventually reopening under a new name, scrubbed of its past, as if a new coat of paint could erase the tragedies that soaked its walls. But the real tragedy isn't about a haunted hotel. It's about a brilliant, curious, and deeply sensitive young woman who was failed. In her own words from her blog, she wrote about her struggle. "It is a vicious cycle. You are stuck in a rut, and you are so depressed you don't have the energy to get out of it." She was acutely aware of her condition, writing about the fear that her illness would prevent her from living a full life. She was traveling the country on her own, a brave attempt to seize that life, to see the world and find her place in it. The story of Elisa Lam is not a ghost story. It is a story about the catastrophic reality of severe mental illness. It's about how that illness can warp perception, turning a hotel hallway into a gauntlet of terror, and a water tank into a place of supposed safety. It's a story about the stigma that still surrounds mental health, a stigma that leads people to hide their struggles, to stop taking medication, to feel isolated and alone. And it is a cautionary tale about the internet, about how our collective desire for a thrilling mystery can lead us to harass the innocent and desecrate the memory of the dead. We may never know with 100% certainty every single decision Elisa made in her final hours. We cannot map the precise, terrifying logic of her psychosis. But we don't need to. The evidence points not to a shadowy killer or a paranormal force, but to a medical emergency that unfolded in the most public and yet most private of ways. She died alone in the dark, in a place she likely thought would keep her safe. The legacy of Elisa Lam shouldn't be the bizarre elevator video. It should be a profound and urgent call for more compassion, better mental health care, and a greater sense of responsibility in how we tell these stories. We owe it to her to remember not the mystery, but the person. A daughter, a student, a traveler. A young woman who deserved help, not sensationalism. The greatest mystery of the Cecil Hotel isn't a ghost in the elevator, but why we, as a society, are so often more comfortable with ghosts than we are with the complex, painful, and deeply human realities of the mind.